and investigated probably over 1,000 sexual assaults on college campuses from coast to coast. And not one of those was the same. They were all different. And so when it comes to violence, I would say you can't take a cookie cutter approach to dealing with it. You have to look at each situation for its uniqueness. You have to look at each situation for what it is and not necessarily, and it's almost impossible with the system that we have today to apply the same consequences for every single case. Now, there are going to be some that you can group in the categories, but for the most part, you really have to take time to look at the relationship between the perpetrator and the victim. You have to look at the motive or the intent. You have to look at whether or not there was a weapon involved. You have to look at whether it was some form of self-defense. You have to look at how was it, who initiated it. You have to look at was there some form of escalation. You have to look at even the power dynamic between the parties, or if there were others involved instigating in some capacity or enabling. There are so many different factors you have to look at. Violence in prisons, for one thing. I'm not, years and years ago when I first graduated from law school, actually, when I was in law school, I used to represent defendants who were in prison charged with various forms of violence um, while incarcerated. And let me tell you, it was an eye opener when I would talk to not only the correctional officers, but the inmates about the culture, the prison culture, and how that culture even varied from race to race, from ethnicity to ethnicity, from religion to religion, from prison to prison, from state to state. There is so much complexity um, when it comes to violence and how to address violence, excuse me, how to address violence in our communities. And so I would say I don't have an answer to it. My only answer would be that much more evidence-based research needs to be done on solutions, and we need to start moving away from the prison being the end all be all and the only solution that we offer to people who find themselves as defendants in a crime of violence.
I should. Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah. Excellent. And we're going to open up the floor one more time. If there's anyone there that has any questions for Judge Wilson, any comments, anything that you would like to share, please do. You don't have to raise your hand. You can go forward. Oh, go ahead, Judge
No, I was
Wilson.
going to say one other thing I just want to mention regarding the question of violence. And I think me and Marquise might have talked about this at one point, is the epigenetic trauma that's handed down from generation to generation. And how oftentimes when you look at violence, like substance abuse, it's a cry for help. And or like I explained in my upbringing, sometimes people don't have a choice. Or like in the case of the grandfather who brought the grandson, the children are raised in an environment where violence is seen as an act of love, or violence is seen as the way that men resolve problems, whether it's toxic masculinity or the machismo, identity that we often see in Latin cultures. Violence is part of the culture. And so we have to really take a look at that as well and sort through all of the cultural norms and things that are often accepted in families or in communities because it's part of it's part of their identity. And I know, again, growing up on the East Coast in Massachusetts, a shout out to my Italian and my Irish friends. They were quick to fist. I mean, they did not back away from a fight. They wouldn't pick up a gun, but they will pick up a fist in a heartbeat and they'll battle it out. And next thing you know, they're out having drinks, moving on. No hard feelings. They were all boxers and they loved the box. And 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 oftentimes they would get arrested for assault or for some other violation of a statute related to violence,
Mm.
but they wouldn't want to prosecute because they liked to fight and fighting was part of their culture, even though it was against the law. So that's the only other thing that I want to add is that oftentimes it's cultural, but it's also trauma based, and it's these I don't even say traditions that are passed down from generation to generation that are part of, so what some may call toxic masculinity today or machismo.
Well, that I was thinking about that. That's a difference. With the and it's funny I should say that, but men, doing that to each other because that they're men and that's how they interact. I have a real issue when men
Mhm.
do that to women
Oh
or
yeah. Yep.
children, or,
Our children.
just
Yep. Yep. That's why I was saying it's got to be each situation is unique,
right.
and you got to look at each situation differently because you're absolutely right. Two boxers deciding they're going to have it out on the streets rather than in the rink is very different than, some man beating up on a child or on his defenseless wife.
Well, I think Sister Carmela has her hand up.
Oh, thank you. It took me a long time, this little hand to go up. I just want to thank you, Brother Ron, and our other great patriarchs who have spoken last Saturday and last Wednesday, that you don't just talk the talk, but you're walking the walk. And the Bible says, be a living epistle that's read of men. And so I just from listening to all of you, I believe that you are just showing people who you are by how you live. And so that's great. My question has to stem around because you've been a mentor for quite a while. What do you see as the biggest need among our young men? We'll answer the women tomorrow or the next month. But what is the biggest need amongst the young men of today as when you first started mentoring?
Good question. Um, Today, I would say, and it really depends because there are so many different categories of men, not just in terms of age, but also economics, et cetera, et cetera. I would say the biggest category, and it kind of goes to what Marquise was saying earlier, is holding them accountable with love, not being judgmental, but ensuring that they know um, that they're cared for, that they are loved, that they won't be abandoned, that you won't turn your back on them, that you are going to be loyal and you are going to be faithful. But that doesn't mean that mentee can do whatever they want. That doesn't mean that you're going to enable them or make excuses for them. That you are going to hold them accountable, and there are consequences, but you're going to connect them to the resources
Yeah.
that they need in order to change their behavior, and then give them the ongoing support so that that behavior can be sustained. So it's not just a one-off where they make a good decision and it's like, okay, now you're good. I'm gonna let you go. It's mentoring relationships. I remember when I first started, um, it was encouraged that you be a mentor, formal mentor for a year, with big brothers, big sisters. And you mentor for a year and then you can move on. Now these young boys need 4 or 5 years of a really strong, sustained relationship with men, a stable relationship with men, in order for them to really get it, in order for it to anchor them, and then give them the strength and the confidence they need to kind of go it, but not on their own, but as a mentor themselves. And so it's almost like nowadays you're going to be a mentor for life. Whereas 20 years ago, you just sign up for a year and then you could, you can move on.
That's a big change in years.
Yeah, it's a big change. But society, and I would even say COVID kind of pushed that like if you would have asked me pre-COVID, I would have probably been okay, a year can do it. But post-COVID, I've seen a number of different things, especially in terms of maturity, wisdom, decision making that have set us back probably 10 years. That 3 years has probably set us back 10 years. And so so you might be mentoring someone in their 20s, but they may have the maturity level of a 6 or 7-year-old.
That's right.
Mm. Oh my goodness. Wow.
Yeah, it's different. It's when I was a kid, there were a lot of men child. I mean, not men child, a lot of children who were like men. And I'm sure that even when you were younger, if you look at your brothers or your uncles, they had jobs at 14, 15 years old. Someone, and then if your grandmother, your grandpops was probably picking cotton at 5 or 6, Nowadays, these guys are playing video games until their 30s.
Right.
Absolutely. And
What sort of backlashes were, I often think about the backlash that COVID put on our next generation. And I didn't even think as far as mentoring and the immaturity that some of these young men have.
Yeah. Yeah. And so when we talk about it, oftentimes we will use the term men and male interchangeably, but I like to draw the distinction. There is a male is genetic. That's how you are identified at birth. Men, being a man is something that you learn. It's something that you're taught. And so we have a lot of males who are not men. And so, teaching young boys how to be men is more important to me, my perspective, than teaching them how to be males. You want to learn how to be a male, you can read a medical journal.
That's right.
Shay. And this is Janiyah had put in the chat, she apologized for coming late, but she wanted to congratulate you on the podcast. Much love to everyone. Boniface had posted, greetings, everyone. Thank you, Brother Ron, for your compelling life experiences and willingness to pay it forward.
You're very welcome. Thank you for the opportunity to share.
All right. And thank you all so much for joining us. Next week this coming Saturday, we'll be continuing our celebration of our patriarchs and fathers with the Patriarch Speaks podcast. Please be sure to join us this Saturday, June 14th at 10 a.m. Arizona time, Pacific Standard Time, 12 p.m. Central Standard Time, and 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Our guest speaker will be Menace Ankh El. Thank you so much again to our amazing speaker, amazing, wonderful person, Judge Ron Wilson, another one of our phenomenal patriarchs and MAAT tribal members, father, mentor, times 1,000. Thank you so much for who you are, all that you do. Thank you so much to our wonderful podcast team, our tribal members, all who've joined today, all who are watching and will watch this later. Peace and love, everyone. We'll see you next Saturday. Have a great week.
Thank you again. Bye-bye.
And love.
Thank you.
Peace and love.
Love.